Well, what I did for fun this past weekend was watch interviews with Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, with Nikki Haley, the UN ambassador, the U.S. UN ambassador, and with H.R. McMaster, the new National Security Advisor. And boy, did I get a shock. Hi, I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this is your right angle about the team that President Trump has assembled around him. Now, when I say I got a shock, it's not that I expected Rex Tillerson and H.R. McMaster and Nikki Haley not to do a good job in an interview. It's just the shock of recognition that despite what Donald Trump appears to be outwardly and the way he speaks and the way he even talks about foreign policy issues, he seems to have put together a team around him that, at least to the naked eye, to my stupid mind, seems to be filled with towering competence and moral clarity. I had seen interviews with Jake Tapper and George Stephanopoulos, and they were interviewing Rex Tillerson and H.R. McMaster. H.R. McMaster was talking about Syria and continually referred to Bashar al-Assad's murderous regime and essentially giving a warning to Russia, saying, why would you want to support people like this? Why don't you back off? Rex Tillerson saying essentially the same thing, that Russia must get on the right side of this issue. You don't want to be supporting somebody who uses chemical weapons against babies and against their own people. And then Nikki Haley in an interview before a gathering of AIPAC, which I think means the American Israeli Political Action Committee or something really close to that. And she was greeted as a rock star there. Oh, yeah. And they were cheering literally every couple of minutes. I was getting choked up watching it. And toward the end, as she's being thanked by her moderator host for what she has done at the United Nations, particularly on behalf of Israel, Nikki Haley said, listen, folks, I appreciate the support, and I'm glad that you people who love the nation of Israel like what I've been doing. But let me just tell you, all I've been doing is telling the truth. Essentially, what she's saying is, I'm not cheerleading for Israel. I'm just speaking the truth about the only democracy in the Middle East and our key ally all these years. So, all of that said, gentlemen, you know how I felt about the Trump candidacy, and I'm not ready to cast that all aside now because I don't think President Trump comes across as well as his lieutenants do here. But Bill Whittle, what do you think of the caliber of people that the president has managed to assemble around him, and what does it say about the hopes of a more reliable foreign policy going forward, even if people are saying that Donald Trump is chaotic and emotional?
I think the team is exemplary of towering competence and moral clarity.
That's a great phrase.
That is a great phrase, and they are all of those things. I'll come back to that in just a second. You may be suffering from a form of the same, look, not to say this is your problem or anybody, because it's easy to fall into this. You may be suffering from a similar strain of the Bush derangement syndrome only because people looked at George Bush and they said they don't like the way he talks. They think he's stupid. He comes off sounding stupid. He's not stupid. Trump comes off sounding loud, wild, unpredictable, erratic, chaotic, all of these things. And yet, if you judge the person by their actions, I don't see how it could be improved upon. This Syrian airstrike had to happen for a number of reasons. Number one, we're not just stopping Syria. We're trying to stop the use of chemical weapons, which have been illegal for 100 years now. So that needed to happen. But what Trump is doing through his administration is he's retraining the Iranians, the Russians, the North Koreans, and the Syrians that we are no longer just going to sit on the sidelines and issue sternly worded letters of condemnation if things cross red lines. This has to be done. So I think that it's an enormous indicator of Donald Trump's personality and competence that the people he's chosen are so excellent. And as we talked about in Steve's right angle this week, he's not afraid to make changes. He doesn't have any golden boys that have to be protected. If somebody's not working, he'll move it around. I have not been proud of my government in 8 years, and I am now. I think these are top quality people. And And so far, so good.
Well, and I think one of the benefits of the last several days has been that the president has allowed these people to speak publicly, and he's basically kept his mouth shut. He hasn't commented very much at all about the Syria situation or the Russian situation. Even Twitter has been, relatively blonde as far as what he's doing on there. He's issued a beige alert, apparently, and everything is going to be kind of low key.
Just to add to that very, very briefly, that may be the result of Donald Trump realizing that the people that he's put into these positions are performing perfectly well.
They know what they're doing.
And that he doesn't need to go and fill that space anymore. Now we're not talking about what the media says about Trump and his people. Now we're talking about actual actions, and actions speak louder than words.
Now, of course, Steve, it's not all that, sunshine and lollipops, because the media is actually saying immediately, including guys like Chris Wallace on Fox News, are saying, hey, President Trump's people aren't all singing from the same hymnal. And they're constantly trying to pick at the differences between what Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and National Security Advisor McMaster have said and how that differs with what UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is saying. But what I want to ask you to do, Steve, is that perception among the U.S. media shared among our foreign allies and enemies, or do you think they're getting a different message from what they're hearing?
Well, I think the strike on Syria provided a moment of clarity for both our friends and our rivals abroad. Listen, let me tell you what's going on here. Nothing in the Middle East is binary. We had our I call them our internet tough guys, but the diehard Trump supporters who came in, oh, Trump's too smart to depose Assad because, whoever replaces Assad would be worse. And I think that's likely right. But then these same people turned around on a dime after those airstrikes and said, oh, my God, Donald Trump's taking the side of the neocon globalists and he's going to depose Assad. No, that's not what's going on here. Lighten up, Francis. What we're doing is we can't stop Assad from using chemical weapons. We can only punish him after the fact. And the world has decided over the last century that chemical weapons are not going to be tolerated, and we're the big guys on the block who have to enforce that. What we can do, however, is if we can bring the Russians on board, Putin can apply the pressure to Assad to stop using chemical weapons. And that is what Rex Tillerson is trying to do with his statement about Russia getting on the right side of this issue. It isn't about getting rid of Assad. It's about taking this horrible weapon out of Assad's hands, which, by the way, Susan Rice had assured us in January were 100% gone. Of course, she was lying. And the NSC, by the way, here we are back to H.R. McMaster, had a great conference briefing with members of the press today in which he detailed the very drab findings of the National Security Council and various spy agencies around the world that, yes, the sarin attack was performed by the Syrian Air Force. It was launched by these jets flying out of this base. It's all very drab, matter-of-fact, and accurate. It was Assad's government that used the chemical weapons. We punished them for it. We're trying to bring the Russians on board, not to depose Assad, but to stop using these awful weapons. And then you've got Nikki Haley at the UN, which is usually a quiet, sort of pointless job where you send some political mediocrity that you need to get out of Washington. And she's turned it into this bully pulpit for awesomeness. And
that's right.
Way to go, Nikki. I loved her when she was the Tea Party candidate all those years ago for governor. And I love her even more in what used to just be the most worthless, pointless job other than vice president. And let's not forget the guy who's getting left out of this one, Mad Dog Mattis, who actually has the toughest job of all of this. Not the waging war part, because I don't think we're going to war, but he's the guy who has to make the case before Congress to provide the right money, not just more money, but the right money and the right reforms to heal the military that suffered of 8 years of neglect and abuse under Obama. So let's not forget that side of things too. This is a great team. This is basically the best foreign policy and defense team we've had since the night that George Shultz dined alone.
And I think what folks are missing in the mainstream media right now is something that they would know if they had simply read, anything about the run-up to World War II, for example, when everybody in the world was basically saying, let's not say anything to upset Herr Hitler. After all, he says he's a man of peace and he doesn't want to take territory around him. He just wants to restore, the pride that was destroyed in the Versailles Treaty after World War I. So let's just appease him. And at that time, that word had a different meaning. In fact, that word has changed changed as a result of the policy of appeasement. But I think they don't understand that the Russian president respects strength, that the Syrian president respects strength, that the North Korean dictator respects only strength and resolve. And by going in and essentially rattling the saber a little bit or speaking tough, it doesn't mean that you're a warrior who's itching for a fight. It means that you want to use everything to assure that a fight's not going to happen. And if the mainstream media doesn't get that, I don't know why they don't just have a chat with their fellows on the left. I mean, the folks in the DNC have been masters of this idea of massive intimidation. And for some reason, they don't take it out of the political party level and apply it at the foreign policy level. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thank you for watching Right Angle, and thank you for the members at BillWhittle.com who made this all possible.